So, good day everyone. Today we will talk about the principles of learning. The principles of learning are the basic ideas that help us understand how people actually learn. So, when we hear about the word learning, we often think about reading books, listening to the teacher, or answering exams. But learning is more than that. It is about changing how we think, how we act, and how we understand the world around us. So, these principles serve as guide for both teachers and students. For teachers, they explain how to make lessons more meaningful, and for the students, they show how learning really happens. So, it happens inside you through your own efforts and experiences, and that's for the students. So, in the next slide, we have this quote. So this quote says that if you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are willing to learn, no one can stop you. So this quote means that learning begins with willingness. So even the best teacher or the most advanced technology cannot make you learn if you don't want to. But if you are eager and open to learning, nothing can stop you. Not difficulty, not failure, and not even time. For example, imagine a student who struggles in math. So, if that student gave up and says, I can't do it, so no one can truly help because they already closed their mind. But if that same student says, I don't understand it yet, but I'll keep trying. So then that attitude will help them succeed. So as learners, your mindset and willingness to learn are the most powerful tools you have. So let's go to the next slide. So the principles of learning. So what is the principle of learning? So the principles of learning provide additional insights into what makes people learn most effectively. So the principles have been discovered, tested, and used in practical situations. By knowing some principles on how learning takes place, we will be guided on how to teach as future teachers. So when we understand these principles, we can improve how we teach, study, and even how we handle challenges in learning. For example, knowing that learning through experiences remind teachers to include activities, not just lectures. Knowing that learning depends on meaning reminds students to connect lessons to their own lives. So now let's go through the first 3 principles of learning to see how they work in real life. So the first principle is learning is an experience that occurs inside the learners and is activated by the learner. So these principles means that learning happens within the student, not just from the teacher. So the teacher can only guide, motivate, and provide information. But learning happens when the learner personally engage and takes action. So it is an internal process, something that happens in your mind and heart. For example, a teacher may explain how to ride a bike, but you'll never really learn until you get on the bike. So try to balance, fall, and try again. So that process of trying, failing, and finally succeeding is what creates true learning. So in the classroom, this means that students learn best when they are actively participating, answering questions, joining group work, and exploring ideas rather than just sitting and listening. So remember, learning starts from you. Your curiosity, effort, and willingness activates the learning process. So let's move on to the second slide. So the next principle, which is learning, is the discovery of personal meaning and relevant ideas. So the second principle tells us that learning is not about memorizing facts. It's about discovering meaning that is relevant to you or to us. So you understand something better when it connects to your own experiences, interest, or feelings. When lessons make sense to you personally, you remember them longer and apply them in real life. Diba? So, for example, imagine you're learning about environmental protection. It might just sound like another topic in science, but if you realize how it connects to your life, like how throwing garbage affects your own community, suddenly it becomes meaningful. So, you might even start changing your habits because you understand its importance. So, another example, in English class, learning about grammar rules might seem boring, right? We are math. So, until you realize that good grammar helps you express yourself better on social media, writing essays, or communication with other people. That personal connection turns learning into discovery. So teachers should help students find relevance in every lesson. And students should ask, how does this topic relate to my life? That's how real learning happens. So, let's move to the next principle. So, principle number 3 is learning behavioral change is a consequence of experience. The third principles explain that learning is a result of experience. It is shown through change in behavior. This means that you truly learn something when it affects you think or act, the way you think or act. So you don't just learn by hearing or reading. You learn by doing, by experiencing, and sometimes by making mistakes. Am I right? So for example, when you first learn to cook, you might have burned the rice or added too much salt on what you are cooking. But through that experience, you learned what not to do next. And that is learning. It changes your behavior the next time you cook. So, in school, a student who used to come late might start arriving early after realizing how much class time did he miss or she miss. That's behavioral change and it shows learning. Even in social interactions, when you learn to control your temper after a disagreement, that's also learning through experience, right? So, these principles teaches us that experience is the best teacher. It shapes our behaviors, values, and skills.
Now, let's move to the next principle. Learning is cooperative and collaborative process. Cooperation fosters learning. This means that learning doesn't only happen when we study alone. It also happens when we work together, when we share ideas, listen to others, and learn from one another. When students collaborate, they bring different strengths, opinions, and experiences to the group. This helps everyone understand lesson more deeply because each member contributes something valuable. For example, in a group science experiment, one student might be good at organizing materials, one at recording results, and another at explaining the concept. By working together, they complete the task faster, understand it better, and learn teamwork at the same time. In real life, this also applies. Think about how doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers cooperate in hospital. Each person cannot do everything. They rely on each other's knowledge and skills to save lives. That's collaboration in action. Group projects where everyone has a role, peer tutoring where stronger students help classmates who are struggling, class discussion where sharing different opinions helps everyone see new perspectives. That is all an example of cooperation in the classroom. So, this principle reminds us that no one learns best alone. Learning grows when we connect, communicate, and collaborate. It teaches not just knowledge, but teamwork, respect, and empathy, which are all essential in life. Next, we have the fifth principle. Learning is an evolutionary process. This means that learning doesn't happen instantly or in one big moment. It takes time, growth, and continuous improvement, just like how living things evolve and develop step by step. In other words, learning is a journey, not a one-time event. You don't wake up one day suddenly good at math, reading, or playing guitar. You improve little by little through practice, mistakes, and experiences. For example, when you first learned to read in elementary school, you started with letters, then syllables, then simple words, and later full stories. Over the years, your reading skills evolve. You learn how to analyze, understand tone, and even appreciate literature. Another example, imagine when you're learning to play basketball. At first, you might just focus on dribbling. Then, you learn passing, shooting, defending, and teamwork. Every skills you gain builds on the one before it. That's the evolution of your learning. In school, teachers also see learning as gradual process. That's why we move from grade to grade because learning builds up. Each new lesson connects to something you learned before. So, the key ideas here is process, not perfection. Don't get frustrated if you don't master something right away. The most important thing is that you're learning, growing, and getting better each day. Learning evolves, and so do you.
Number 6 is learning is a painful process. This means that learning is not always easy or comfortable. It can be challenging because it requires effort, patience, and willingness to accept mistakes and failures. Sometimes we experience frustration or disappointment when we do not understand something right away. However, this pain is part of growth. It helps us to develop resilience, discipline, and deeper understanding of what we are learning. True learning often happens when we step out to our comfort zone. And number 7, one of the richest resources of learning is the learner himself. The learner plays a most important role in the learning process. A person's curiosity, experience, ideas, and motivation are valuable tools for learning. Instead of relying on the teachers or books, a learner can use his own thoughts, observation, and past experience to understand new things. In short, self-awareness and active participation make learning more meaningful and effective.
The process of learning is emotional as well as intellectual. When we say learning, it is not just a mental activity that involves facts and logical thinking. It also involves feelings, emotion, and personal experience. Emotion can influence the process of learning because learning engages both the mind and the emotion. For example, in my personal experience, I love math during my high school years. That is why I chose my course BS Ed Mathematics. Because for me, it is the subject I enjoy and understand when my teacher explains it. However, deep inside, I also have a fear of failure, and that emotion can influence my mind while I'm learning. That shows that learning is both emotional and intellectual. Since learning is both emotional and intellectual, a teacher who is encouraging, understanding, and positive can help students feel motivated, confident, and engaged in learning process. This emotional support can boost students' self-esteem, reduce anxiety, and create safe environment for learning. So the teacher has a big impact in the process of learning. Process of problem solving and learning are highly unique and individual. Problem solving and learning are processes that differ greatly from one individual to another. The way people solve problems and learn is highly personal and distinct. Example, when we having problem solving. For example, student A wants to use long division. Student B wants to use the formula of synthetic division. For example, student A used that long division because for her or for him, that is the best way to solve the problem and he or she knows how to use it. And student B uses synthetic division because for him or for her, she knows how to use it to solve the problem. So both of them have a unique strategies or formula they uses to solve the problem. Example number 2, cooking a new dish. It is a real life experience, right? So one person may follow the recipe steps by steps, but another person can cook the dish according to his taste or according to what he cooked before. So she or he knows how it tastes. So each person has a unique experience based on how they learn it. Many examples for that. The process of problem solving and learning are highly unique and individual because some learners has a unique experience or a unique knowledge when it comes to problem.